Jack and Dave rolling, boots on the ground. Big Rooster Media making their rounds, tackling water.
What's up, Klamath Falls? This is Dave.
Hey, what's up, Klamath Falls? This is Mike, and we got a special guest with us today. We've got Mark McDaniel, who is retired now, but Mark was the wing command chief here at Kingsley Field, and then prior to retirement, moved up to being the state command chief in Oregon here. And now he's back. He's retired. He's also my neighbor, and we're going to talk about the past, present, and future Kingsley Field. So thanks for coming on, Mark.
Hey, you're welcome. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We've talked about this for a while. I know people are going to be excited to hear all of this.
Yeah, well, it's an exciting time for Kingsley Field and Klamath Falls, so that's a good thing.
Yeah. So you're the second of three generations that has been a part of Kingsley Field. Is that your dad was, then you, and now your son, or?
Yeah. I mean, my dad, he was here in the '60s when Kingsley Field was an active duty base, and then I've been out there. I was out there for a long time, and my oldest son, he's out there now. He just got selected to be one of the squadron maintenance commanders, and my son, my other son, Andrew, he was active duty for about 4 years. I still got another son-in-law out there, so yeah, Kingsley Field kind of runs deep in the family.
Well, first off, I'd be kind of remiss in not saying thank you to you and your family for your service.
Oh, well, it's just an opportunity. It was awesome. I mean, it was good to us, and I appreciate my dad leading that legacy. So it's been great.
It's kind of like a doctor. It's like the military family business,
Right?
Yeah. Well, my daughter, one of my daughters, she wanted to come out there.
Yeah.
And I told her, I said, honey, you can't be in the squadron with your brother. You can't be in the squadron with your husband, and I don't want you anywhere near me. So it's kind of funny. Poor thing. She would have been good at it too.
Fair enough.
She would have been good at it.
So I was under, and I don't know that a lot of people outside of the folks that maybe, and I know you are local here.
Right.
You traveled a lot for the military, but you're from Klamath Falls. But I don't know that a lot of folks understand the history of it, that they just thought it was a National Guard base, or maybe they'd heard about the Air Force, but it goes further back than that.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's, I think there's a long legacy of Kingsley Field, and it'll continue. So, but I think in the 40s, it was a naval air station, and they used it, I think, during the World War II era to actually speed up the production of fighter pilots, because they needed so many in World War II. And then the Naval Air Station was here, and then they were here for a while, and then it was converted to an active duty Air Force base. And they had the F-106 Delta Dart, which was, at the time, Kingsley Field was a interceptor type squadron for the West Coast, protect the West Coast. And then the active duty went away. I think it was in 91, somewhere around there. And then the Air National Guard started coming in when a group of officers from up in Portland decided that Kingsley Field was an ideal situation to maybe create a training unit for the F4s, because that's what they went to the F4. And then that evolved to the F-16 training unit, and then obviously the F-15s that they currently have, but now is maybe aware of the community, they're starting to get that conversion set up for the F-35, which will set up longevity for Kingsley Field. And so that's kind of the evolution of what fighter aircraft have been out there, and the Naval Air Station, on how it began.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's been a few of the new ones flying around occasionally, correct? I mean, they
The
haven't been
F-35s?
running out- Yeah.
Yeah, they've come up. Luke Air Force Base right now is the main training unit for the F-35s, but it's also an active duty base, so it's a huge base, and it'd be a good opportunity for Kingsley Field to take the F-35, and periodically they come up and do what they call dissimilar aircraft training, so that Kingsley pilots can fly against dissimilar aircraft, and the F-35s from Luke come up quite a bit, and so that's a good thing.
Where's Luke located?
It's in Phoenix,
Oh,
Arizona.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
We get folks out of Idaho, don't we, sometimes, that come in here as well? No.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what.
From everywhere. Huh?
Yeah, they do, and you get a lot of what's great about Kingsley Field is our airspace east of here. It's some of the best in the country, and that's why it keeps Kingsley Field viable to have missions. Because the key for any, especially Air National Guard bases across the country, is to have that next mission prepared for the future. Because back in the day, have you ever heard of BRACs? It's called base realignment. It's like a base realignment. So Congress and whatever can say, okay, let's take a look at the bases. And sometimes they'll take your mission away and kind of shut your wing down and maybe move it somewhere else and they realign it. Well, you don't want that to happen, especially with a guard base. And Kingsley Field brings a lot of economic value to Klamath Falls. Without Kingsley Field, it's in the millions and millions of dollars. So for Kingsley Field to keep now to get the F-35, that's
Huge.
that's a big deal.
Yeah.
But that training space east of here, over by Hart Mountain and that way over there, it's ideal because a lot of the training bases across the country, their training space is kind of limited and congested. But here it's awesome.
So sparse out
It's a big deal. Well, we talked about the Naval Air Station earlier. They used to use that airspace over there too for training, but they would use some of the lakes over there to practice their torpedo
really?
bombing
Oh,
stuff.
wow.
So it's like, well, because like we were joking before we started here, that what we're going to do submarine races out at Klamath Lake or what in the Navy. Yeah, so that's a little bit of the history of Klamath, but it's yeah.
And just going back for a minute on the Brax, that's when, so like early 2000s, that's when like a Army and a Air Force base would kind of come together.
Well, they've done
They lost one, correct? I mean, they
Yeah.
kind of made it a combo base somewhere, but one or the other lost a base to make that one joint base.
Yeah, well, that's like McCord up by Seattle. They've combined with an Army base, so now it's a joint base. You got Army and Air at the same location. That's like Andrews Air Force Base in Washington D.C. It's a joint base as well. So it's kind of like it's almost like efficiency thing now, to where the evolution of warfare and things like that have allowed it to combine and have a joint operation.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So under your tenure, was it all F-15s, or did you go through a transition from the F-4s or whatever the previous generation plane was to the F-15? Or
Yeah, when I came back into the Air National Guard in '99, they had just a couple of years previous to that converted from the F-16 to the F-15. So they were just getting into that finalization of their conversion. So that was a big deal for them then. Well, the same thing's going to happen here within the next couple, 2, 3 years on that conversion. And what they do is they send units or advanced teams out to take a look at your base to see what your capabilities are. And then you got to think about the infrastructure upgrades to take the F-35. The F-35 is one of the most technical aircraft in the world. So what equipment you use for the F-15 could be totally different than what the F-35, because it's so complicated. I think the crew chiefs, the rumor has it that, the crew chiefs aren't like they used to, where they did a lot of hands-on maintenance and stuff. The F-35, you can plug into it and it can kind of tell you what's wrong with it, which is kind of interesting.
you got to be more of a software specialist than a mechanic.
Yeah, and so they gotta bring in new infrastructure, because you got to have protection for that aircraft from electrical strikes like lightning. The F-15 can sit out on the ramp. Sometimes I believe the F-35, you're going to have it under cover, because if it gets hit with a lightning strike, it could do some damage to the aircraft.
I imagine with all the stealth technology too, it's a lot more electronically sensitive.
Yeah, it is, and it's one of the most technical aircraft in the world, and it's advanced, so it's good. And so for Kingsley to be, it could be Luke will continue probably to be a training unit, but Kingsley would be supplementing Luke Air Force Base in that training, because for now quite a few years F-15 was the only F-15 training unit in the United States Air Force, which is something to hang your hat on. Yeah, it's something to hang your hat on. Used to be down at Tyndall Air Force Base in Florida too. But they shut that down to do the two other aircraft.
Kind of familiar. I was going to bring up the Florida, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, that's fine.
No?
So there's not really any kind of a set time frame now for the F-35s to come in. I'm sure you said that manufacturing has a lot to do with it when they start putting out airplanes.
Yeah, I mean, it takes, I mean, if you're converting a lot of your, fifth, sixth generation fighters to that level, a lot of units are going to be getting them. Some have already been deployed to other units across the country. Because the United States, especially if you're alert, like Portland, it protects the West Coast. And if a Russian Bear bomber or something gets too close to the coast, they're going to activate and they're going to alert and they're going to go intercept them and do their thing. Well, they've done that throughout the corners of the United States, depending on where you're at and what they do. But their job is to protect the coastlines and everything. But the F-35 it's coming. My guess is, and I kind of get a little bit of intel from my oldest son, but they got to put the F-15s to bed and then start getting that manufacturing, because those F-35s aren't the cheapest things in the world. So to start manufacturing them, they got to keep that rolling. And with the new administration, they're going to start taking a look at what they need to do, and you just want to keep your hat in the ring,
Right.
so to speak.
Make sure it's efficient.
True.
Yeah. So
True.
no, it's exciting. I know that there's been several that have been in and out of here. I have not seen one yet. So
An F-35.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
kind of an aircraft buff, so I'm disappointed that I haven't.
They sound different.
They're louder.
That's the way I notice them. Because
Well, it's kind of amazing. They're a single engine jet, but they're actually, to me, they're louder than an F-15 with two engines.
Loud.
F-35, I think, is
Really?
louder. Yeah, it's a more powerful engine.
So I told it, but I spent a little time on the civilian side working out at the airport.
Yeah.
A couple of opportunities I had to sit on the taxiway when they were launching the F-15s. Even when they just taxi by, the intake is much louder than the exhaust.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's an impressive aircraft when it goes past you, especially at a close distance. So.
Well, hey, you guys, that the summer they're coming up with they're not. I don't think they're calling it Century Eagle. I think it's Wings and Eagles or Eagles and Wings.
Yeah.
I think that's like
July something.
July 17th to the 19th. You have to go out there.
yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
definitely
since
will.
you guys are VIPs, maybe we could get some VIP seating for you or something.
We know a guy.
Pull some
know a guy.
pull some strings for you. I don't think I have any clout anymore, but maybe I know someone who does. Who knows?
We'll get that information out on our page. I think I've already posted it on our Facebook page, but we'll get it out there on this show also, the exact dates and what all's going on. So we'll get it scheduled for you guys.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'm excited for that. I have yet to make a Century Eagle either. It seems like I've always got something going on.
Yeah,
This
well,
year I'm making a point.
well, I believe the Thunderbirds are going to be here, and there's going to be a F-35 demonstration team. So that'll be neat to see in itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So it's interesting that 35 is a single, because there for a while, the 15 and the 18, the dual engine there for a little bit kind of phased out the single, right? The F4, 16.
Yeah. It seemed like it did, didn't it? I mean, the F-18, the Hornet and all of that, and the F-15 and F-14. And yeah, but I think now it's just a lot of it is because, the technical stuff and the technology is going so fast that even sometimes some people are saying that even the stealth technology, it's there, it's still worthwhile, but at some point in time, warfare changes so much. And technology now, what about AI?
Right.
What's going to happen with AI?
That concerns me. I ain't gonna lie.
Now you got to confront how to take care of drone swarms. I mean,
Right.
I don't even know how
And
that
that's another one. You have a little
gauge.
story about
12 gauge. Get your shot. See, that fit right into Klamath Falls, right? We're good.
Yeah, we get all the duck hunters together. Drone swarm be taken care of, no problem.
Wow, that's a good one. That's good.
What was that?
Well, you have a good story about the Predator.
Well, I don't.
You may not be able to confirm and or deny, but
Right.
you done seen.
So I don't know. 3-4 years ago, I was coming up 139
Yeah.
from Tule Lake, and I was about where Mac's store is, a little bit south of there. Oh, I know what I saw. I had a V-tail
Mm-hmm.
and a big bulbous nose on it.
That's a predator.
Yeah, and it was
Pretty much.
just cruising down, probably 500 feet up, cruising down 39 the opposite direction.
Yeah, well, that's a almost a source of contention for fighter pilots nowadays is unmanned, aerial vehicles. Is that a buddy of mine now? He's down at Creech Air Force Base, which is just outside of Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas, and he flies drones. You could sit in a room like this and actually fly a drone over the Middle East and do whatever you got, surveillance or shoot a missile at something.
Yeah,
So
crazy.
is that what's coming, and we're gonna not have as many fighter pilots, or what's the deal? That's interesting.
I think there's room for both.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe in that.
I had, before I met you, I had another buddy that you know, and I called him that day and said, "Hey, am I going nuts, or did I really just see this go over my head?" And he goes, "I don't know what you're talking about. I can't confirm anything like that. I sit in an office all day." Yeah. Fair enough.
Well, just sometimes crazy things happen. My wife and I, years ago, when I first went into the active duty, we were driving from Klamath Falls, Oregon, down to Alexandria, Louisiana, my first duty station. This little tiny little car, and we're driving through Nevada, and at night, and a jet came really low over the top of us. And at that time, we were like, what the heck was that? But we think at that time, because later on I worked on the F-117 stealth fighter. Okay. But we thought that was what flew over the top of us in their testing stages. So that's like you seeing a predator.
Right.
Like what?
So it's not impossible that's
No.
what I saw.
No,
Perfect.
it's not.
That's all I've been looking for.
You never know.
I don't have to know for sure that on that day that's what it was. I just need to know that I wasn't absolutely out of my mind.
Well, we're witnesses, and your viewers are a witness that you saw it.
Yeah, and it was the craziest thing because it wasn't like super fast coming down there, but I'm going one way and it's coming the other way, and like, man, am I really seeing what I'm seeing? But I have no doubt that's what it was.
We're gonna go. Well, we're gonna confirm that.
Okay. Confirm sighting.
Yeah.
Well, and see, I have another one too. So on that same kind of pattern, the Predator and also the U-2 are very glider-esque. And I don't know if it's a known fact that Kingsley Field is what, I don't know if you can confirm, second or third longest runway
It's one of the longest.
on the West Coast,
It's
or
one of the
period?
longest. One of the longest.
Okay.
That's what allows it to, one of the things, and not to stray off the topics here, but one of the things that Kingsley Field brings, you think about if there's a major earthquake and all of that in Oregon, we all wonder about that. The state worries about it. If something ever happened in our west of the Cascades, something happens, liquefaction or something happens, Kingsley Field could be a big player in bringing in bigger aircraft to support such an emergency, and that's a big deal in Oregon. And so, it's one of the longest runways, and that makes it another reason why it's so viable and important for training missions and other missions. So that's a good point.
One of the most exciting things when I was working there on the civilian side is when they'd have an IFE or in-flight emergency, and I got to go chase the plane down to make sure he wasn't losing parts or fluid, and got to see how fast an F-350.
Oh yeah.
Quad cab long bed with a bunch of gear on it would actually accelerate down that runway.
Well,
that was kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because the F-15s and other aircraft, F-18s and F-14s, they always you have a tail hook, and people are like, well, why you have a tail hook on an F-15? You're not on an aircraft carrier. It's like, well, for that exact reason, you have an AFE. The cable guys go out, they put that cable up, and they catch that cable because then they can stop and not worry about running off the end of the runway, or they have a hydraulic problem or whatever. So that's why they have a tail hook.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the most interesting jobs I ever had.
Yeah.
Pretty neat experience out there. It could have lasted longer as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So present day, they are doing F-15EX training here, aren't they? Or is that?
Well, they're still doing F-15. Probably it's the C&D models.
Okay, but not the EX.
No, the EX are specifically. So I'm not aware of where they're doing that specific training. because some of it might translate over, but there's new stuff. There's new avionic packages with it and all that. But I'm not so sure that the avionics flying capabilities aren't fairly similar. But they're, I mean, it's obviously it's starting to wind down. We aren't training as many pilots now because they're converting. But the F-15EX, Portland needs those, and they're slowly getting them. I think they don't have a lot of them yet, but I know they have their first ones, which is a big deal. Once you start getting new airframes on the tarmac, that's a big deal because now your foot's in the door. Because even Kingsley still to this day, it's scheduled, it's supposed to be coming, but with the new administration, you don't. But I think we're in good shape because we need that training unit.
It's kind of an off the wall question, I suppose, but do you know, like when they're coming out with new airframes, do they try to keep some similarities from, say, a F-15 to an F-16 or an F-35, or where when a pilot gets in each airframe, it's not just completely brand new to them? Is there, do you know any on that?
Well, I mean,
similarities what they can.
well, I think a good example would be the F-15 C&D models compared to the EX. There's got to be some flying. There might be some differences that I'm not aware of, but like some of the jets, though, they are sometimes totally new, and that's why they have to go such an extensive training program. They start with small jets or small aircraft, and then they move up to where they get to the point they can actually. Because Kingsley's training unit out here, they got state of the art simulators, and these pilots go through a pretty rigorous training educational program, and some of them wash out, some of them don't make it. And so, I mean, but it's pretty extensive. Yeah, but that doesn't, I mean, a lot of the aircraft are, I would say, just as a guess, that the F-15, F-18, F-14s, if you look at them, except for the sweep wings on one of them, they're kind of similar.
Right.
Some of them, maybe you can do a fly-by-wire type stuff and some not. But I think these new ones, like even the F-22 and the F-35, I think those technological advances have changed even at Kingsley, even with the F-15, they put the new headgear stuff on the pilots to where their heads-up displays and stuff like that, and where they could see, different things on their screens and, face shields and stuff like that. So the technology is amazing.
I was just watching a program the other day on the B2, and they were talking about how those guys aren't not taking anything away from them, but they're not pilots so much as they are computer operators nowadays, because that plane pretty much knows what it needs to do, and you're there to make sure it just completes its mission.
Yeah, it's amazing. Amazing. Old guy like me remembering back when, the F-15, you got your targets and you lock in on your targets and you see them from a distance away. I don't even know a little bit if the capabilities of an F-35, they have a gun, but I don't know how much they would ever need to use it.
Right? They can hit a target 150 miles away. So
Exactly. So that's why even the F-15s were so advanced in regards to shooting an opponent 40, 50 miles away or whatever it is. And now the F-22, and the F-35, they can probably not only shoot one, but multiple targets at the same time. So that's pretty interesting.
Right.
Yeah. Kind of scary. The thing is that some of our adversaries have they're pretty technically sound as well. China and especially China.
Yeah.
But
I'd say they're the biggest threat we face today.
I would think so.
You see some of the stuff online or whatever with like I guess, what did you say the 35s were? The Gen.
Well, you're getting into
4,
Gen
5,
5,
or 6.
5. Yeah, you're getting into the advanced generations now.
I think the most coolest feature on the newer ones is that, what you call it, the engine rudder, where they can
exhaust vectoring.
Oh yeah, and yeah, I think
That's a good
biggest limit there is the pilot.
well, that's a good point, because the F-35, there's just not one style.
Right.
They specifically make them for Marines and stuff like that, or in the Navy too, to where they do have the vectoring where they take off vertically.
Right.
But the Air Force doesn't necessarily need that.
Right.
So that's the differences, the models. So that's a good point. It's crazy.
It's crazy. Well,
Yeah.
and just one more thing on that B2 deal. It just blew me away, but they say coming in, they'll be 200 feet off the deck doing Mach 0.9. that's like 650 miles an hour, 200 feet up, because it has ground sensoring radar. So it guides itself over trees and little hills. And
Well, that's about all it
that's insane.
can do, though. That's probably top speed for that.
I want a ride to do that, though. That's got to be 200 feet off the deck doing 600 plus miles an hour.
Would you fly in an F-15?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
I've done it twice.
Yeah, and
Yeah. It was fantastic.
Okay.
I'm just not that good with carnival rides. A lot of people get sick,
yeah.
and I did both times, but that's okay. Yeah.
Sign me up again.
Yeah. Well, you know how it is. Have you ever been seasick?
Yeah, once.
It doesn't feel all that good. And so it's the same feeling. Yeah, it does. But when you're in a jet, and you know, I was fortunate. I mean, it's just to share an experience. But I was in Louisiana as a young airman. I got an incentive flight, and when we took off and went straight up like a 6,000 foot max climb. And the pilot's like, look back between the tails, and it's hard to turn to look, but you look back, and it was fantastic. But I 3/4 of the way through, I wasn't feeling too good. But it's just your body's not used to it.
Sloshing around in your
Right.
face shield. It
Right.
can't be a whole lot of fun.
Well, you're on a mic system with the pilot. He goes, "Hey, if you feel sick," and then you had your little bag and all that. But he says, if you're feeling bad, I really don't want to hear it. So just flip your mic to a cold mic. And I'm like, okay. Yeah, I don't think they want to hear that
You
too
got to
much.
do this checklist before you can get
There's
sick.
not a
but-
lot of
Yeah. Okay. Hold on. Yeah.
and not a lot of sympathy from the pilots either, is there?
Well, no, and that was a joke. You know, us enlisted guys. You know, sometimes they get a flight. And just a quick story is a buddy of mine. He was going to get an incentive flight, and we were in operations where the pilots are anyway, and he was kind of doing a little trash talking to one of the pilots that was going to take him up. It's not a good idea because they can do a lot of things in the jet. They can do a lot of G's, and most people that don't fly, you're not used to that G forces when you're doing 7, 8, 9, whatever G's.
Don't yell at the cook.
Right?
Yeah, do not. Yeah, but when he came down, we went out to greet him when he came back, and they had to get a shoehorn to get him out of the back seat. He was looking really, really bad. He looked like Yoda when he got out. But anyway, that was just an old story.
I don't know if you knew a pilot that went by coma.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. I bugged him a couple of times.
yeah.
Work me into the system. I don't know. He goes, "You don't want to ride with me." Well, one way to find out.
Well, you know, they used to in night flying, and I don't know what their sortie rates are now, but they used to, and we used to take folks out to go out to the end of the runway, and when they took off, they're like right there, and it's night flying, so the flame is 50, 60 feet out the back, and you get pretty close to where you just feel the whole thunderous feeling in your body, and it's almost like a feeling of, you know, America. I mean, it's just like
Freedom.
that's freedom.
Sound of freedom.
It is.
Yeah.
And who
The
knows?
only similar feeling I've ever had was at a Top Fuel drag race.
Oh, yeah, it's exactly the same.
It's
Oh,
like your guts turn to liquid for a second.
yeah, it's probably not that good for you, but the feeling of watching it and they take off, it's
Right.
like, wow.
It's worth it.
Yeah, it is. It is the sound of freedom.
Yeah, it is.
It truly is.
Yeah. I've got friends out of state that I talk to on the phone, and every now and then I'll be on a conversation when the jets are flying, and like, oh, what's all that noise? I say, that's freedom. Freedom.
Yeah, I mean,
forever.
when I was a command chief, every once in a while, the command chief out there, we'd have a complaint once in a while, and the commander would, answer it and everything. But it's like, well, and they try to do noise. Sometimes they would try to take off in a direction or depending on what they were doing. Because each time you go out, there's a mission and training and whatever. So then the young pilots, they got to learn how to take off in afterburners and whatever. And if they're coming in or taking off, they would go in the opposite direction. They try to consider it. But whenever you're in afterburner, you're still going to be really loud no matter what you do.
Well, when they're courteous, I mean, even when there's night flights going on during the week, I mean, it can get a little late, I suppose, for some
Sure.
folks, but I think by 10 and 10:30, they're usually wrapped up. So it's not horrible.
Yeah, whenever they they forecast it out and they make sure the public is aware that it's happening. So it doesn't make it quieter, but at least they know they go, what is that? Oh, yeah, they're doing night flying. Yeah.
I have no sympathy for those people because, I mean, you can't train when you would want the person complaining for you to train. You know what I mean? You have to
Right.
train at night. You have to train in not so fantastic conditions. It's going to happen. And like you said earlier, the financial really backbone of Kingsley on this town is significant. So, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, when we had, right now they still have it, and I don't know how it's going to transition. They have a unit, an active duty unit out here of, at the time when I was still out there at Kingsley, there was probably 100, 110 of them. They were active duty that were here just to support Kingsley's mission with Manpower, and they were from Luke. They were actually active duty, and they were stationed here. And the problems we had then was housing for them here. Housing, they didn't have enough housing for them to, because they were active duty, they weren't permanent here, so they had to, if they bought a house, if they rented, they're probably going to be here for usually active duty. Sometimes back in the day, you were only here at a unit maybe for 2 to 3 years, and then you'd be what they call permanent change of station to somewhere else. So that was a big challenge, was the housing for them, and they're still here. But now I don't know how long they're going to stay here, if we're going to convert to the F-35, if they're going to keep that squadron here or not.
Wasn't the Falcon Heights neighborhood originally for base housing?
It was base housing back in the active duty days. It was. It sure was.
But since it's a training base, they don't provide that.
No, and in the Guard, you rarely see even infrastructure out at Kingsley Field right now. We have a gym out there that most Guard bases don't have a gym. That gym was left over from the active duty days, and so there's certain, like a BX or a commissary. We have a little tiny little shopette, we call it, out there that you can go in and get a few little things, but you don't have that at an active duty. You go to an active duty base, their gyms are fantastic, and their commissaries, it's a nice place to shop because a lot of times you can get better deals. But most active duty bases, it's self-contained. You've got daycare, you've got commissary, BX, you've got everything you need to where if something that happened in the outside world, you could probably live on that base for a long time without any support. But not a Guard base. Guard base is more because you got your weekend folks that come out one weekend a month or 15 days a year. But then it's kind of a model now to where you've got some active duty people out here and guardsmen. So it's kind of this transition of flexibility now. Because used to, back in the day, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, you had your own little niche and, they talk trash about each other, right? But now it's all interacting. Your missions are even interacting.
My other friends that are still in the service still talk trash about the other guys.
Oh, we have to. Yeah. We have to. I mean, come on.
The Marine Corps, they're there to protect the Navy, and the Navy's there to write the Marine Corps check.
Well,
the Navy was there to give them a ride.
And the Air Force, we protect all of them. Yeah. No. Yeah, a buddy of mine went to school with. He was a sergeant major, same rank equivalent as I was in the Army. And he said the best thing he ever, it's war's war. I mean, he'd tell me stories of when they'd be in a firefight in Afghanistan or Iraq, and they're in trouble, and they'd call in air support, and the best thing they'd love to see was an A-10.
Yeah.
Because an A-10 would just light up the hillside, and all of a sudden the battlefield just changed.
It got quiet.
Yeah. But I mean, that's how it's evolved now, especially with things happening at the time, the Afghanistan and Iraq, those wars with urban warfare stuff, that changed how you fought wars.
That was a whole new style for us, really. It's something I hadn't really faced prior to that.
Yeah. And so now they do a lot of training on that type of stuff, especially the Army and Marines.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That was one of my two favorite airplanes. That and the A-10 and the SR-71.
The SR-71 was cool. My favorite is probably, and the F-15 Eagle, as they say it, has never been defeated in combat, in air-to-air combat, which is something to say.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
the A-10 is just that's my favorite. If you talk to our Army brethren, they're like, no, don't get rid of the A-10 because that is close air support. And the last thing you want to do if you're in a tank is know an A-10 is in the area because you are in trouble.
Yeah.
You might as well get out and start running.
I can't help but think that tanks, especially with drones now, that tanks are going to be kind of a lost tool in the future.
Yeah, well, you're right. I mean, I try to keep up on things and read up on things and just to see because that was my profession, but it's evolved past me. I mean, I it's hard to keep up. And drones, you could not have all the firepower that, let's say, China or the United States has, but you can make it an equalizer with all these drones and whatever they have. And like you say, a tank, how long are they going to keep them? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think they just did an update on the Abrams. But,
Yeah.
that might be it. Who knows?
Well, you can take a drone on your back, go out in combat, and let it take off and do some damage with it.
Yeah.
And it's expendable. What's a drone cost compared to a whatever
Tank
$1 billion?
Yeah, whatever you're blowing up with it. Yeah.
Yeah, or an aircraft.
I think they said that, like Ukraine, I think their average cost on a drone is $20,000 to $30,000. That's a drop in the bucket in warfare.
Right, right.
Munitions cost more than that
Yeah,
on an
it just-
A-10 probably.
Yeah, yeah. But the eight, like,
Yeah, well, depleted uranium rounds, and they're not little ones
Right.
either. And so I can only imagine that that's not an inexpensive.
yeah. But the A-10 is, it was so durable. That's an aircraft that was actually built around a gun.
Yeah, yeah.
And the pilot sat basically in a titanium bathtub to where protected as much as possible. But I've heard of A-10s losing half a wing and half a tail and still make it back. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And the pilot's still safe.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. How did we get on? We got off of Kingsley Field, didn't we?
Oh, Kingsley
Didn't
Field,
we?
yeah.
But
Yeah, it's still a good conversation.
Yeah,
though.
but can't you talk about it for hours?
Right.
I mean,
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
and it's just
Oh.
fascinating.
No, and
Fascinating.
I'm probably not the best person to be doing this interview just because I'm so fascinated by
But ditto.
military aircraft in general. You know, they're just, it's mind-boggling what they can do with them now.
Well, it's amazing. Even in the state of Oregon, when I was up at Salem for a few years, got to go out and see some of the other things some of our airmen do. And one of them is a special tactics squadron. These guys are the ones that go into Afghanistan, Iraq, wherever they go now, and they got the beards and they got great equipment, but they go in and do specialized tactics. And do you remember what was the name of in Antelope, Oregon, the organization? Is it the Krishnas or what was the name of it?
Oh.
To where they brought in, they were,
That cult that came in.
yes,
and,
yeah,
and they were
yeah,
just out
yeah.
in Beatty or Bly or something.
Well, yeah, but they were up in Antelope, Oregon. They had a whole, he built and he brought in his Rolls Royces and all of that. Well, when I got to go, that shut down, but the facilities were still there. So we went and watched a special tactics operation to where they were doing a recovery of a Humvee that was disabled, and they were purposely being ambushed, with fire, and you had your blank shooting at each other, and those guys are. But see, that nobody knows that even exists up in Portland. That they go out and they deploy and do these crazy things, but that's just one of the missions that the Oregon Air National Guard does.
No.
Had no idea.
No.
Yeah.
And that's going to drive me nuts now because I cannot think of that cult's name, but I know, and the guy, but I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Somebody will shoot a message to us.
They will, but it was, so they use that as a training facility sometimes for our special tactics folks.
I want to say Rajneesh. But
Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay.
I think that's it. Yeah. Yeah. But it just, some of those experiences.
Sorry about that.
I thought maybe
The ringer off.
I thought somebody was answering your question already.
Right.
That's pretty quick. You got some listeners.
Well, heck, so it seems like, new administration, so that causes some questions to pop up, but it looks like in general the future of Kingsley's pretty good.
I think so. I mean, my oldest son, he was just in D.C. for 2.5 years as a staff, working the staff there, and he had a lot to do with the F-15, but he seems to think that, once you make that decision, I'm just hoping that as soon as we can get an F-35 on the ground here, that's what I'm.
Seals the deal.
Yeah. I mean, you get nervous because sometimes administration changes, maybe ideas, and future mission sets change because the world changes. We're changing. Things happen. Like look at Ukraine, look at Gaza, and all that stuff. I mean, that's
Who knows what's going to happen
lot-
with Iran here in the near future.
a lot going on. So you got to, and if I've always thought that people can say what they want about the military budgets and all that stuff, but I still think in the world your military has to carry a big stick. I just do.
It's what keeps people in those
Because
borders safe.
because there's people out there that I don't trust that would love to do something to our country, and we got to protect it. Yeah.
So I remember. I don't know if I was here or here on vacation. Way long time ago. Were you here when the 747 landed with the space shuttle?
No.
Oh.
When was that?
I have no idea. So it was one of the last missions of the space shuttle, but it missed the window where it was supposed to land in Florida. So it landed, I forget, somewhere west coast. But do you remember the guppy? I think they call it the guppy style.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it was planned out, but they had to basically pick up the space shuttle, and then it refueled here, and then it was on its way back to Florida. But they made a big come look at the space shuttle kind of thing. I don't know.
That's cool though.
That was.
I don't remember the year. I do remember, hearing about it.
Yeah.
But I don't think I was back at Kingsley yet.
Yeah. That could have been a vacation.
That's pretty neat though.
Yeah. Because my grandparents lived here before my dad retired.
Yeah.
So we would come back out and say hi, and I don't know.
Yeah.
My parents planned it that way.
The only thing I remember that was unusual here is one of the big Russian cargo jets. It's probably I think at the time it was the biggest in the world, had landed here. And it was so big that when it turned around, it was blowing dust everywhere. And the only reason it was probably here is because I can't remember why, but it was, that's why that landing strip here is one of the better places you can land almost anything.
Yeah.
It seems like between the airspace that we have for training and the runway that we have at the base, bodes well for the future, I would think.
Well, and then how much sunshine we get a year, the weather is pretty ideal for training. Yeah. I mean, when you go, I've been to the DC a few times with the commander, and he's, saying the best things he can about Kingsley Field and what we bring to the fight. And they talk about that a lot, about your airspace and about no congestion too much with international airports and things like that. So that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And so it hasn't changed. There's nothing really being changed down in Eastern Oregon because we're so close to Idaho and Boise and stuff, and Mountain Home Air Force Base in Idaho, that they have a training area too. It's called Sailor Creek, and they've all talked about combining, but they aren't going to do that. But I think it just, when you talk to legislatures and generals in DC, that's one of the biggest things they want to talk about is viable airspace and weather.
Okay.
So it's kind of good for us.
Yeah.
We just got to get them on the ground here.
I got one kind of, I guess it'd be off topic, but not really. It's like housing for these guys when you got a whole new platform coming here. And how much of a challenge is it to find? Because I know finding rentals here in town it's not real easy right now.
Yeah, well, that was earlier. I was talking about the 550th that Luke, a detachment, was here because they're going to be here for a while. But the thing about our guardsmen here is a lot of them are permanent. They're here.
Yeah.
They'll buy a house and they'll be here for their whole career. That's not the active duty. So it'll be interesting to see. They'll do a survey. They'll do a manpower audit and things to see what manpower they need to support the F-35. I don't know what that change is going to be. It's probably, just depends. But we'll see about that.
You guys
if they have
coming and going for training, there's no barracks that they can stay at, is there?
There's a dorm, but they're not going to stay there permanently. That's more of that dorm is mostly for the 1 weekend a month folks that come from wherever they come from, Medford, Portland, wherever they come from, and they stay in those dorms for the weekend and they go home.
Okay.
But that's not really we'll see. We'll see what the manpower with the F-35 airframe, what the requirement, because you might not need what we call them was the Air Force Specialty Code. That's their job code. And so whatever your job code is for the F-15, that's not to mean they're going to need that job at all for the F-35 if it's a lot of it is electronic and computer driven. You might not need, let's say, an avionics guy. You might not need, so that's what they got to see what they're going to need in the future for the F-35. But I mean, they'll bring a team in and do manpower studies and do all that stuff. They're probably in the process of doing that now.
Okay.
So I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah.
But-
yeah, I mean, I can assume it's still a challenge for folks coming and going, but
I mean, it's a challenge. The problem, like when the active duty folks were trying to get places to stay or rent, was we got a college here too. So the college students, they need a place to stay as well, and they're not going to buy a place. They're not going to buy a. You know, they're going to be a homeowner. They're going to be a rental.
right.
So, yeah, I mean, we tried to get more housing built. If you got contractors or developers to do that, but it's hard to do that.
Yeah.
But we'll see what the Manpower does. But I, you know, just as a guess, I don't think the Manpower is going to be, 500 more people. I'm just guessing, but I haven't seen the Manpower study. But, because you have over 1,000 out there now. So I think the biggest thing is going to be infrastructure upgrades for the F-35. And that's going to be good for the economy as well.
They've been doing a lot of work out at Kingsley. Is that in preparation for the F-35, or is that just ongoing upgrades that were already planned?
Well, I think both.
Okay.
I mean, once it starts to be okay, because the money, once it gets authorized and everything, the money's going to flow. I mean, most F-35 bases, when the F-35 start coming out, especially at Luke Air Force Base, a lot of money goes to the program. So you just want to be in the game. Yeah. So, but now the runway and stuff has to be redone periodically, because quite a few years back, we took the whole unit and we were over in Boise for 6 months while parts of the runway were being redone, and they're still doing some of the ramp and stuff out there, because it's a lot goes into it. It's got to be so thick. The concrete mixture's got to be certain percentages of this and that. It's got to be absolutely perfect. And if there's a problem, they got to tear it back up again. That's not a good thing if you're the contractor.
Right. I think that happened once.
It did. It did.
No, I know my routine as soon as it was daybreak was to go up and down the runways looking for FOD.
Oh yeah. FOD's a big deal.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, you don't want a rock to go through. Well, bird strikes too, especially with hawks and seagulls, and you got to keep them out of there, because you take a bird in the engine, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
A lot of money. A lot of prepared.
You know a guy named Hunter that used to do that out there?
Hunter?
Hunter, yeah. That was his name, which was so appropriate because his job was to
the FOD guy?
The geese, the ducks, anything, seagulls.
Yeah.
God, what else? Skunks, you name it, everything. If it crawled or flew, he was on it.
Oh.
Wouldn't get on the runway.
I actually do remember him. He was our one guy.
Super nice guy.
And he would come and he would work with our operations crew, because the operations crew would they'd go out if there was something out there. They'd go out and take pop guns and stuff and try to get the birds off the runway, and he would be a part of that.
Yeah,
or he would tell them how to do it, because you couldn't just take the shotgun out there and take care of it. That's not a good thing to do. But yeah, I remember that guy.
Yeah. Super nice guy.
Important guy.
Oh, yeah, very important.
Really important.
Job.
You don't want bird strikes. But anyway.
I may or may not have had a goose dinner because of it.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm just gonna leave it at that.
But see, that's why you guys are important, to give you updates in Klamath Falls. That does not happen in Klamath in other places. Only Klamath Falls. Yeah.
More alleged activity, huh?
Alleged. Yeah, I can neither confirm nor deny, but I said I may have.
Alleged.
Well, shoot. I think I'm going to run out of things to.
Well, hey, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate, what you guys bring to Klamath Falls, because, it's kind of a neat thing to do, just to discuss what's happening. Right. I mean, it's kind of a neat thing.
There's a lot of negativity about Klamath Falls out in the community in general, and I hate that, because I moved here for a reason,
right,
20 years ago now, and I love the community, and it's got so much potential here. And if people would stop looking at the negative and start embracing the community that we actually have here, that was the whole purpose in doing this, is to shine, for the most part, a light on the positives of Klamath Falls and Klamath County. I mean, there's negative things, and we're going to cover those too.
But it's amazing too, to where, my wife and I, Jeannie, we graduated from KU back in 1979, and at that time I'm thinking, I got to get out of here. I got to go do something. And I went in the Air Force, but we were gone for 20 years, and some of our friends, they wanted to get out of here too, but it's amazing how many people come back.
Brings you back, don't it?
It does bring you back. There's something to be said for that because it's pretty laid back.
Yeah.
Everybody has problems, but our crime rate's not that bad. I mean, you have it and you'll see it, but
You're going to have that anywhere.
you are, and so Klamath Falls isn't so bad. To me, it's.
I left for 3 years and came back. You were in Texas for what, 7 years?
7, yeah.
Came back.
You're back. It's not bad.
It's yeah, something about it.
Yeah, it is.
raw.
It's not
I
a.
love it. As an outdoors person, I love here.
Yeah, that's not bad either.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys having me. It's very interesting. Appreciate your time.
Appreciate you coming
Dave,
over.
Dave, thank you. Yeah, we'll be fans. We'll be some of your listeners. We were watching a couple the other night, my wife and I. It's pretty funny.
Yeah. How do you like the new theme song? Have you caught that?
Yeah, well, that's the one we watched where you were saying how much you liked it. I like it. I like it. This is just a neat setup, and it's neat you guys can do this in Klamath, and hoping that you get more and more listeners.
Yeah, it's growing more and more. It
Good.
seems like the more it grows, the faster it grows. It's just kind of a snowball effect. So, yeah, things seem to be going in the right direction. And then having folks like you that are willing to come on and talk about things of interest, here.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And if there's ever anything I can help you with, but it's just interesting.
Just
It's
that right
fun.
in an F-15.
We can go look at them.
All right.
Yeah, I'll pull. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm down with that.
Well, it's always interesting because even you can go in and go and look at the engine shop and watch those guys work, and just it's all they do out there. It's amazing. Even the things they bring in the community. You've heard about the Starbase.
Yeah.
I think you just talked about
We
it.
just talked about that.
Yeah.
But
Finally got the funding.
my daughter-in-law, she just sent a thing for my grandson that they're redoing it, so he gets to finish whatever he started out there. Which those kids get to go out and, like you said, do rockets. And I've walked through there before, with the general and everything. And what they try to do with those kids is it's good for them.
Yeah.
It's good for them. Teach them about science, technology. What was the EM for again? STEM.
Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what we need for our kids to learn. But
It is, yeah. It's important to have stuff like that. So, yeah, I was glad to hear that they got funding. And
Yeah.
kudos to Warner, and I cannot remember.
Warner
Yeah,
Reschke
okay.
and yeah. But I mean, like you're saying, sometimes money goes to things that doesn't make sense, but that's one that does.
Right.
That's one that does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, no, it's great having Kingsley here. I don't mind the noise one bit. And,
No.
be happy to have it here for a long time to come.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks again. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you, Mark, and thanks for your services.
Hey, my pleasure.
Yeah,
My
you
pleasure.
and your family.
Yep.
It's a lot of legacy. So, all right. Well,
Yeah, we'll probably be here chatting after the cameras, but we're gonna shut them off for now. I
All righty.
appreciate your time. Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Thanks, folks. Hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you.